Hello, Harry here. You find yourself either listening to this in audio on any number of podcast platforms or watching the video version on the YouTube channel JOG ON Podcast with Harry Morgan, which you can also find on our website, thisisjogon.com. Either way, welcome and thank you for joining us. If you've already seen the title of this episode, you'll be aware that the guest is someone special.
I wanted to just be an Olympian so bad and be able to get an Olympic medal so much.
We recorded this conversation together exactly 1 month to the day since she'd won an Olympic gold medal at Tokyo in the mixed relay triathlon. This accompanied the silver medal that she brought home in the women's individual triathlon.
It's a bit claustrophobic. You get a bit panicky because you don't know what's going to happen.
Georgia Taylor Brown is a gifted and driven human who I got a rare chance to speak with about her experiences at the Olympics, including getting a heartbreaking puncture in the race.
But then I just basically heard, and I instantly thought, oh no, why is my brake rubbing now? This is not good timing.
As well as her life so far leading up to this golden moment.
I don't care. I want to be a triathlete. I want to go to the Olympics.
We discuss post-Tokyo life and the strange and often discombobulating process of coming home after reaching the dizzying heights of Olympic success.
Oh, well, everything's exactly the same and I'm still going to morning training and I don't feel any different.
JOG ON in podcast format has been releasing episodes for some years now, and so it's an honour to finally be able to say that we've had a gold medal winning Olympian on. I hope that you enjoy this episode and get some inspiration from her story. And if you want to help us out in some small way, share this episode with a friend. So please, welcome to JOG ON, Georgia Taylor Brown. I think it's fair to say you grew up in a household that already had two parents who were familiar with the life of an athlete. Early on, do you remember that ever having an effect? Were you inspired by your parents at all? Was it an atmosphere of sort of a drive towards athleticism?
I don't really remember my parents competing. So my mum was a swimmer and a runner. She rode horses and just very active. She was kind of a county national level, loved the cross country stuff and swimming sort of county national level. And then my dad was the pro athlete, so he was an 800 meter track runner, so he represented England and Great Britain but was like around the Sebco era, so very, very tough era to be running 800 meters in. So he actually retired quite young, so I wasn't alive when dad was actually competing. So I don't really remember it, and we didn't really talk about it much because at that point dad was just in a normal job and mum was working. So yeah, I don't really remember the competitive side of my mum and dad. But when we were young, we were sort of encouraged, but more just given the opportunity to try every different sport that we wanted to try. Mum and dad would throw all sorts of sports at us and let us join every single club, and then it was up to us whether we enjoyed it and we wanted to continue, or if we didn't enjoy it then we'd just stop. There was never any pressure there. It was just, we were just an active family and we enjoyed being active. I mean, our weekends were full of bike rides in the woods and going on walks, and throughout the summer holidays we had a caravan, so we would take it to Cornwall and we would be down there for like 5-6 weeks at a time, and we'd be surfing all day and swimming. So yeah, we were just a very, very active family. So that's kind of what I remember of my childhood. And I do remember early swimming days, just sort of being in the top of the swim class, but spending most of my time under the water. More than anything, I just think I enjoyed ducking down and being under the water. From my childhood, I remember swimming the most because that's the thing that I did the most. And then, I didn't start running until I was about 14. We were just encouraged to do whatever we wanted, really. I tried everything.
And when you were swimming, did you find that it was partly your natural ability? You found, I'm quite good at this compared to a lot of the kids? Or was it you just generally enjoyed being in the water that meant that you really picked up the swimming in a bigger way?
Probably enjoyed being in the water. I didn't think, I'm good at this. I just enjoyed being in the water. And like I said, from a young age, we were down in Cornwall and in the sea all day, and I absolutely loved it. And then not just the swimming part, more the social side as well. I enjoyed being around different friends at swimming and making new friends and really look forward to going to those sessions. So yeah, I think swimming is just something that I really enjoyed from a young age.
It sounds like you were brought up in a sort of an environment that cultivated and gave you opportunities, really. So that's quite a nice thing. You talk about this, not a transition because the swimming keeps going, but the discovery of running, and that was through school in particular. You obviously arguably found a bit of success at running because running is this thing that you found you potentially are quite good at from an early age. So how does that happen for you? What's those initial steps into running?
I started running. I mean, obviously I ran as a child, playing games and stuff, but I guess properly running and in races was maybe in year 8 or 9 in high school. So we did school's cross country just around the field at school. And I would just be lapping everyone because I went to an all girls school and the girls weren't really interested at all. So they would just sort of walk around the cross country course and I'd just be lapping them and lapping them and lapping them. Yeah, I started running there. And then I think the PE teacher, she kind of realized I had a bit of a talent. And I guess that was more my endurance base from the swimming. At that point, I was doing about 18 hours of swimming a week.
Wow.
So I was spending a lot of time in the pool. So I was just pure endurance based. That's why I've never been good on the track at all, because I just don't have the speed and I don't have the tactics or anything. I can just run. So I think my very first English schools was pretty bad. I'm sure I fell over at one point, or I might have fallen over twice. So it was a strange experience, but I obviously loved it because I went back for more. So the year after that, I got selected for the school's international cross country, and so representing England there. So yeah, I think I was just, like I said, I was more of an endurance athlete. So I was good at the cross country because it was just run at a fairly hard pace, but there's no tactics involved. You just go for it. And even now I get excited about cross country. Like if I smell grass being cut, it just brings back cross country memories and I get all excited because it's just something that I love so much and something that I hope I can continue doing.
Yeah, absolutely. You bring up a point that I was going to ask you about, which was there's a clear thing that rises out of even just preliminary research into your running history is that cross-country and grass-based activities really seems to come to the fore. There's very little in the way of, like, as you mentioned, the track stuff, the hard stuff, the fast stuff, that kind of intensity. What do you think that is? Do you think just as much as you're used to, like you say, 19 hours a week in a pool and building that endurance base, do you feel like biologically there's just a thing where that really quick leg turnover, that real kind of fast stuff, that 1500 meter type stuff, when you watch the 1500 meters at the Olympics and you see them really gunning it, have you just felt like you've always just been someone who has a slightly kind of medium to slow twitch muscle fiber base?
Yeah, I think I always say I'm a bit of a plower, and I plow through the ground. And I've tried as a kid. I did like the school's the school's track races and things like that just because I got selected for them. But it's not something I actually enjoyed. For me, being on the track is like being on a stage. I feel like because everyone knows your times. So even now, I don't even train on the track at all. I stay away from it completely. And I stopped training on the track about, maybe 4 years ago now. Because I used to do it just because I thought that's what I should do because it's what every other triathlete did. But then I realized actually I just don't enjoy it. I would get so nervous before track sessions. And like I said, I feel like you're on stage. Everyone knows your times. Everyone knows how you're running. If you're having a bad day, everyone knows about it. So I decided to step away from the track. But yeah, I think for me, just my running style, it's a strong running style, and it's a very slow turnover, and it's definitely suited more to the grass. Even road running I find quite difficult. All of my running sessions are actually on the grass.
And so fascinating that you talk about the pressure of track, and a lot of people listening to this will be able to relate to that track is, you're right, it's this thing that's very based around times specifically, and someone can race on a track in New Zealand and someone can race on a track, South England in Southampton, for example, and you can pretty much fairly, apart from weather conditions, say that person did the same 800 meters, and it's very accurate. And yet with cross-country races, unless you were there on the day, you don't know how you would have performed. So it's really interesting to get that perspective that track is this very, it is like a stage. You're absolutely right. right. You are right there. And if you're having a bad day, it's hard to hide. There's nowhere to hide it. You can't sort of dig in and cling off the back of someone. It is, you just sort of die on stage. And that's a really interesting analogy. I never quite thought of track in quite that way, but you're right.
And I think maybe it's depends on the athlete. I think if you're a track runner, I mean, I might be wrong, but like you said, you can be anywhere in the world, and you know that if you run on the track and you run in this time, then you're at this kind of level where you can't really compare when you're on the grass. And yeah, for me, it's just all on how I feel, and that seems to have worked up until this point. And it's also important to have fun. Like I keep saying, I genuinely just enjoy sport. Like it makes me happy. I'm not just doing it because I'm all right at it. I do it because I actually love it. So yeah, I think for me, I've always loved it and I've always had that love. So I just like to go out and see how I feel. And I want to have fun with it. I know that this isn't forever. So probably figured out the hard way because I've had a lot of injuries, a lot of bone stress injuries. So I have figured that out the hard way, and I don't want everyone to go down that route. But I do think it's something that you have to figure out yourself and find out what works. And sometimes, yeah, you do have to push those boundaries and push the limits. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But at least you've tried and you know that it doesn't work. So you try something new. Yeah.
It's funny. I'd seen a thing recently where you talked about your training plan and the 25 hours a week that was being put into this, which is from a running perspective is obviously extraordinary. But when it comes to triathlon, it's just a full-time job. The amount you guys are doing is unbelievable when you really nail down what's happening from Monday to Sunday. It's funny you mentioned about 4 times a week running. I'd noticed that. And it is, for some people, they'd look at that and go, oh, that's slightly lower mileage than I expected. And it's what works for you. And yet you still perform so well at running as you do, George, as we've just demonstrated in the Olympics. Your running is so strong. It's funny, I'm actually bringing out a video, I think in tomorrow, which is kind of tracking a week of my training as I build up for some 10K training. And there's only 4 runs in it. And I think people are going to be quite surprised going, oh, there's only 4 runs in this. And yet then there's a swim, there's a bit of aqua jogging, there's a bike in there. And I think for some people, that's going to be a little bit of like that's wow. Okay. Compared to these guys who are going out, doing double runs, just solid running and very little in the way of S&C or any kind of cross training. So it's interesting that you talk about the fact that it's what works for you. And I mentioned in that video, I say, this works for me, but it may well not work for you. I'm certainly not recommending it. So it's a tailored experience. Do you think that the tailoring is a process that you go through your triathlon career? Do you tweak things here and there? Like, for example, removing the track. Has it been a tweaking of your what works best for you to get to this point now where you've got the arguably the perfect recipe?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's perfect. There's still things, obviously, as an athlete, you always want more and you think you can do better, and you want to be a better athlete every single day. But no, to be honest, it's been a fairly similar program for the past 9 years since I've been in Leeds. So I came here to Leeds for uni, but mainly I wanted to be at uni for the triathlon. So yeah, the program is fairly similar. It's changed slightly, maybe like for instance, I don't do track anymore. But no, it has stayed the same. I think for me, it's been more about managing my recovery around the sessions. That's been the biggest thing, and the biggest thing to try and avoid injuries. And obviously they still happen. So then you learn from that. Like the injury I had recently, I had a femoral stress response before the games. And I kind of realized that it's probably because I had been so consistent for so long because of the pandemic. I'd not had chance to come off of training to race. And in those race weeks, you're forced to do less than half of what you would usually do. Whereas I was just going to an easy week, which is only dropping down to about 18 hours. So you're still doing a lot of training, and then I would jump straight back into 25 hours. So I think from that, we've realized that maybe we start to gradually build up 1 week, 2 week, 3 week gets to 25-hour volume in the 3rd week. And then we have a week off, and then we build up again. Yeah, we've kind of figured out that's probably what's going to work next time. If I'm not going to have those forced rest weeks where you tapering into a race.
Yeah, that's interesting. The lack of races during 2020 actually could lead to a sort of not having the tapering period because there's nothing to taper for. So you are constantly, it's like this ongoing train of training that doesn't allow maybe the same rest. You mentioned the word love before, and the fact that you love the sport, and I think that's a great point you bring up. Having been around a lot of different scenes, particularly obviously on my end in the running world, I have seen the runners around, and maybe you've been around athletes that you look at and kind of think, you know, they're wearing the heart rate monitor, or they're really focused on the time they just got, and you kind of think, well, at what point did the kind of just the passion for why we do it leave you? Like, you've got to really enjoy what you're doing to be here and to make it. You've got to want to get up to do it. There's going to be hard days, and you've talked about before the fact that there are days where you lack motivation in the morning, and one of the great ways to get around that is just have a plan, and you're like, well, I've got it written down, this is what I've got to do, so I've got to get up and do it, and you feel a lot better afterwards. There might be some cake and tea afterwards to look forward to, etc. But would you attribute some of that to your success, that you've never fallen out of love with it? At the end of the day, this has all come off a foundation of, I just love triathlon. It's a great sport.
Yeah. And I mean, I am only human. There's days where I do not want to think about sport. I don't want to go for a run. I couldn't think of anything worse. I don't want to go ride my bike in the rain. I really don't want to get up and do an early morning swim. And those days I have to be very careful, because I have to think, okay, am I just being really lazy and should I just get it done because I need to do it? Or is my body actually trying to tell me that it's tired and needs to rest? So I think, I have to figure out if I am just being genuinely lazy and really not bothered at all, or is that my body saying, look, just chill out, have the day off and put your feet up? Because sometimes I think, oh, well, I've only got a 90-minute ride. It's not very much. So I probably right now I'm going to get more out of just sitting on the sofa for the rest of the day and watching a film, because the recovery is going to help my training more than a 90-minute easy spin. So there is that fine line. I guess that's how it always is in sport. But no, I get so excited about racing. Obviously, I get the nerves as well, and the Olympics more so than any other race ever. And after that, it was just a relief that I didn't have to go through that again for a little while at least. But yeah, I just get so excited. Like the morning of races, I put some music on, I'm dancing around, and I'm just really, really excited and ready to get out there and race because I love it. And I think I'm fascinated by the body. That's probably a big thing for me as well. I'm fascinated about what you do. And this might be weird, but I'm also like, I guess like with pregnant women, I'm fascinated by pregnant women, like they're growing a human inside of them. And I just think the body is incredible. So maybe that's why I love sport so much, because I want to see what my body can do. I want to see what it can handle. I want to see how much it can change. Like I quite enjoy in off season, in the winter, gain a bit of weight, get really unfit, and then let's see how I can get the weight off me and get ready and back to racing and back to being race fit again. So I think I am just really, really interested and intrigued by what the body can do. So that's probably another aspect of why I love the sport so much. But yeah, I do just get excited. And I think it helps that I've got such a good group of girls around me in British Triathlon, and well, not just British Triathlon, triathlon girls in general. They're just a lovely bunch of girls, and we just have fun. We're on the start line just having a giggle, and then the gun goes and we're off and we're racing, but we're not super, super aggressive in the race. I think we still look out for each other and we still want to do well.
And you see that in you passing water. Are you hearing commentators sometimes saying, oh, we've just seen Georgia Taylor-Brown passing Jess, whoever, some water. That really shows the team spirit. People seem to love that thing, because I think we are sometimes guilty of thinking that, oh my God, they must hate each other when they're racing each other like it's this thing. And actually, when you do that, you think, well, no, like 9 months of the year, they've actually been training together and meeting once a week to do this particular session. You forget that you are off, like when you're on the circuit, like you're gonna meet Flora Duffy a number of times. Like eventually you're just going to build a relationship with that person, at whatever level, because and I think we forget that sometimes when we see people compete.
Yeah, and I think going back to what I would say to younger athletes, it is just enjoy that time and make friends. You don't want to be going to a race and just because you're competing against them doesn't mean you can't be friends with them. And I think that's what makes athletes miserable and fall out of love with the sport, because they're actually just going there to race and that's it. They're not enjoying themselves. They're not taking it all in. They're not making friends. They're not having fun with it. So I think it's really important to have friends on the race course, but obviously at the end of the day, you are still racing them, but everyone knows that you can still cross the finish line and have a hug and be friends and be happy for someone. I'm not someone to make excuses. I just wasn't good enough on the day. It's kind of as simple as that. So yeah, I think we all just want each other to do well, and we just enjoy, we kind of feed off each other's successes.
And just the amount you race as well. It's very hard to be so consistent to just win everything, that you're going to experience multiple failures, and that will build your character in general. On playing devil's advocate slightly, Georgia, one thing that's come up through looking a little bit into your journey so far is you're clearly a very, very nice person. Like, you're an incredibly friendly, lovely human being. Is there ever a point when you've looked back and thought, you know what, or something you've learned from compared to when you were sort of 2021, that you've thought, I could be a little more aggressive in the way I race? And for example, the swim, it's complete chaos in there. The froth, particularly if the boy is not too far on a long straight in the swim, and there's a lot of bodies and arms. And you mentioned in one chat about the fact that if you accidentally elbow someone, oh, sorry. Have you ever looked back and thought, do you know what, I could have fought a little bit more for that place or something? Are you a slightly more aggressive racer than you used to be?
The racing is down to me. I can't blame it on someone else, and I'm not going to attack someone else in the water because I'm not having a good swim. In the water, in open water, the races can get quite, there's a lot of contact there. I think the group that I always find myself around on the pontoon and around in the water, we all respect each other. We know each other's level of swimming. We trust each other. We know that if I let Flora in front of me, I know she's not going to drop Jess's feet, let's say. So I know that I can trust her. So yeah, you get used to who you race with, but I'm aggressive because I'm a racer, I'm an athlete, and we want to do well. We want to win at the end of the day. On the bike, if I feel like someone's not pulling their weight, then I will say, just pull a turn, but in a nice way. I'll say, all you need to give us is 10 seconds. Let's just roll it through. I won't shout at someone. But yeah, I think, I don't know. It's a tough question, I guess. I am aggressive in a way, but not really super aggressive.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think there's a nice balance, and I think you've got a good attitude there. If you say at the end of the day, it does come down to me and I can never blame anyone else for it. I always look at those absolute froth of just arms and legs sometimes, and as someone who is a pretty terrible swimmer and has done very little open water swimming and has certainly never raced in that format, I always think like that would almost be quite, on your first couple of races, like I would find that pretty intimidating, being around other swimmers thinking, oh my word, just sort of trying to make your way through. It looks a pretty mental part of triathlon. Taking you back on the chronology ever so slightly, I wanted to talk about the fact that you're running and you're swimming and both are going well, and you don't really want to give either up. So there is this kind of conversation that happens where you talk about going for a triathlon trial. When did that idea first pop up? Had you done much cycling up until then? When did you think, well, maybe there's an opportunity here to have a look at cycling, running and swimming? So
I trialed for the British Triathlon Talent Squad when I was 15. Like I said, I did about 18 hours of swimming and I was doing cross-country running, but I was running with my group once a week, and I would go straight from a swim session in the evening straight to a run session. And that was it. That's all I did. And then it got to a point where I guess at that point I was coming into sort of year 11, GCSE kind of year. And mum said, you can't really continue doing both of these because it was taking up a lot of time and I needed to be able to balance my studies in there. So she suggested that I give triathlon a go. And so we went to the British Triathlon trial day, and I'd never done a triathlon before, and everyone there had triathlons. So I was like, oh, well, I'm never going to get on this squad because I've never even done a triathlon. So I went through the trial day, and you had to do a 1,500 meter run on the track and a 400 meter swim in the pool. And your times from those gave you a certain amount of points. And the points that I got were like the maximum points that you could get. So I guess they kind of took a bit of a risk and took me onto the squad. So I did my first triathlon when I was 16 at Blenheim Palace, and I fell off my bike. I had a really good swim because obviously I'd come from a swimming background, and I was in the front pack. There was just me and two other girls, and we got like a nice little breakaway. And then I clipped the girls way in front of me and fell off my bike. And I think I finished last in that race. I walked a bit on the run because I had a bit of a stitch, and it was just a bit of a disaster. But yeah, obviously I loved it. for some reason. I don't know why I went back for more, but I did. And then, yeah, just sort of slowly built up from there. It took me a while to be able to stay in a bike group. I really struggled with the power there. And I think cycling is something that takes a bit of time to get the power there, and you just need to do the miles on the bike. And I wasn't, because I was school, and then I was going through sixth form, so I just didn't have time to be going out doing the miles on the bike. So it took me a little while to be able to stay in a group, maybe 2 years. And then, yeah, I just was getting better and better in triathlons, to be honest. And like I said, I just really enjoyed it.
And you must have seen a drastic improvement because, as we know from triathlon, cycling is such a staple. It's that anchor in the middle of a great race. You've got to have a great bike ride in there. So did you see, once you'd kind of cracked it a little bit more, the cycling, you had the time, as you say, cycling takes a lot of time. Going out for 3-4 hour rides is really a big amount of your day, really, the cycling. Did you find that that was when you sort of moved into a slightly another gear once you'd got that cycling down a bit more?
Yeah, I definitely did. And I think I realized that I was getting better and faster on the bike, because we used to go on training camps with British Triathlon with the talent squad. We'd do them maybe 4 times a year. It was usually sort of in the school holidays periods. And we would do a lot of riding on those camps. And I would, at the very first triathlon camp, I got dropped on the bike on every single ride. And I would always be in the van, sat there, just really sad and feeling sorry for myself because I'd been dropped. And at that point, I felt like I had something to prove, because they had taken a chance on me, because I wasn't a triathlete at that point. I'd never done a triathlon. So I felt like I had something to prove. So I was so upset and angry with myself that I couldn't ride a bike and be with the rest of the guys. And I guess that made me really hungry and want to be able to finish these rides. So yeah, I'd say for the first year, I definitely struggled on those rides, because we were out for like 5 hours and we'd go out no matter what the weather. And I just didn't have the right equipment either. I didn't have all the fancy cycling clothes that everyone had. I was basically just turning up in running leggings, some cycling shorts, and those T-shirts that you pick up from cross-country races that cost like £10. I was going out in those. So I just didn't have the equipment. So it was hard for me to do these cold rides. But yeah, I really enjoyed riding my bike, and it's such a social thing as well. So it's nice to be able to go for these long rides. So I wanted to obviously get better, and that only came from doing more and more cycling. So I started doing some sort of sessions at home on my own on the turbo. Because it's probably the easiest way to get better if you don't have enough time to go out and do these 4-hour rides, and you just get on a turbo trainer and you do a session on it. I'd say I realized I was getting stronger because I could actually ride with the group and do the whole ride on a training camp. And then we started racing, and I realized, okay, I'm able to stay with the front pack now, and I'm not getting dropped from races. And then slowly got better and better. And I was the one actually driving those front packs and making the breaks to catch people. And so, yeah, I just slowly got better, but it took a lot of work.
Yeah, it seemed like it. You're right. If you don't do those kind of hard miles on the bike, like, it's just not there. It doesn't. You can be the best runner and swimmer in the world. You can sit in that saddle, and it just doesn't quite convert. Like, it's just a different kind of ability. Like when I've ever been out and cycled against someone who actually spends a bit of time cycling, considers themselves a half decent cyclist, your ego gets absolutely decimated. They just go away from you, and it's a quite humbling experience when you ride against someone who can really ride, as I have found out many a time. It's interesting. I was probably slightly mistaken when I first learned a little bit about the history of you, Georgia, and when you first started out in a swimming pool at 5 years old, and it immediately gives someone the impression that this is like a dolphin who then sort of is this incredible swimmer, and then kind of tacked in some running and cycling. But you've actually referenced the fact that you possibly argue that swimming, of all of them, is the weakest of the three, and it's the one you have to sort of work hard at, particularly on training sessions. You've referenced that hard swim is probably your least favorite training session of the week, because it's pretty hellish, and just going all out in the water and just diving into that cold lake. I can't even begin to imagine. One of the results of that is you kind of swim hard at the start and then are possibly a little more tired. Just talk me through in a race. Is that something that usually plays on your mind, that you think about, right, if I can just nail the swim, that then the confidence grows as you race? What's that process like? Talk me through it when you begin. How do you feel about the swim?
That's probably the reason I get nervous before a race, is because of the swim, because I don't know how it's going to go for me, because it's kind of upsetting because I spent all those hours swimming as a kid and I'm still not comfortable in the water. It doesn't come natural to me. It's not easy. Whereas I'd say running is a bit easier for me. I just find it more comfortable. So yeah, the swim is definitely the part that makes me quite nervous, because not just the speed of the swim and whether I'm going to make the pack, but like we were talking about before, the contact. I just don't want to get mauled. It's not a nice feeling. It's a bit claustrophobic. You get a bit panicky because you don't know what's going to happen. So yeah, the swimming is definitely a thing I've had to work on the most. And I know that can make or break your race, to be honest, because the way that the racing has been going for the past few years is that there's a nice little group out of the water. We're strong enough on the bike to get that initial break, and then usually it sticks. So I know that I absolutely have to be there out the water if I want to have a good race.
Yeah.
So that's the thing going into Tokyo that I really, really have to nail. And like you mentioned, I don't enjoy those hard swim sessions. I find them hellish. They're just not fun. They take so much out of me, and I never feel good on any of them. So it takes even more out of me emotionally. So I've just had to forget about that, and also just think I've got to get to this pace. And even if, say, we've got some 100-meter reps to do, even if I only manage to hold that pace for the first 50, at least I've got to that pace. And then if I die, then I die, but at least I've got and I've hit that pace and I know what it feels like. So it's kind of just, for me, it's been going through that process of going out and trying to stay confident in these sessions and hitting that initial pace. And then, yeah, at the start I did die, but that's how it is. And I've got stronger and stronger each week. And now I'm pretty consistent and I can hold that pace much more comfortably. So it's taken a good year to be able to do that. It's not something that's come easy, unfortunately. But now it has paid off, because I had a good swim at the games and a better swim than I thought I would have, to be honest. So yeah, it's something that I know that I've had to work on the most, and not just the swim as well. If I can get out of the swim and it's a bit more comfortable, then I've got more energy for the first half of the bike. Whereas in the 2019 season, I was there out the water, but the swim took so much out of me. I spent absolutely everything on the swim that I'd get on the bike and have nothing to give at all. So I'd just be hanging for the first few laps, trying to regain some energy. So we needed to figure out we kind of worked out that I'm going to have to get stronger in the swim. So then it's a bit more comfortable in the swim and I'm not giving it absolutely everything. So then I can get on the bike and I've got a bit more something to give.
And when you get off that bike on the final transition and get into the run, is there ever a slight weight off your shoulders? Because now you feel like not only you're on the home stretch, but you're now doing your favorite discipline, the discipline that you feel the most confident in. Is it fair to say there's an element of like, you kind of relax a little bit? Okay, I'm at the run now. Like, this is me. Or do you still kind of hold out until that finish line?
I definitely relax, and I feel, not just because I enjoy the running the most, but once I'm on 2 feet, it's all on me then. So there's no one from the outside that can affect my running. That's all down to me. Whereas on the bike, a crash might happen, something
Puncture.
might happen. That's out of your control. And again, in the swim, someone might attack you in the water. So then that's kind of out of your control. So the run, once I'm on 2 feet, I'm safe, I'm happy. So then I just do what I've got to do. I'm still feeling the pressure and obviously still need to deliver. And some races are better than others. Sometimes you get onto the run and you feel amazing. And sometimes you really do feel the bike legs kicking in. So yeah, it's all, it's very up and down. And I think I've realized that we're not robots. We can't always perform, and some days are better than others.
Yeah, that's interesting, is mechanical failures and things. I think that's same here. I've always been interested in sports that you use your body only. That's why I've always been fascinated in climbing and martial arts and stuff, because it's just, you sort of rely on your own biology. It comes back to that fascination with our own bodies. You don't have to, like, with a bow and arrow, if you're into archery, you don't know, the arrow might break, the bowstring might go. And there is I think one of the reasons I've always enjoyed running is there's a safety in it. If anything goes wrong, it's just on me. Like, there's no external factors. Like, even if my shoes, came off, I just go full Zola Bud and just run it barefoot. Like, you can make those adaptations. I want to take you to a slightly darker time. We don't need to go into the grand details of the what all happened, but effectively in 2014, you had a pretty bad injury that put you out for a really long period of time. And if you look at your results on triathlon.org, etc., there's all these kind of results up to about 2013-ish, and then 2014, 2015, there's basically this large gap of results where you had a fair bit of time off. I think it was a total of 16 months that you didn't run. Coming out the back of that, looking back, do you ever reflect on that time? Did it make you a little bit more grateful for when you are healthy and able, and remembering that there's a couple of screws in your feet, etc.? Does it balance out your perspective when you have a bad day? You can think back and think, well, I've had a bad day today, but at least I'm healthy and well compared to those days when things weren't so good.
Yeah, it's definitely nice to see how far I've come, because I had to sort of, I guess, start from scratch. I had to go back to basics and learn to run again almost. Because 16 months, it is a long time, but it's not like now if I have got to have 2 weeks off running because I've got a little niggle, I'm still upset. I'm not like, 2 weeks, I did 16 months. And some people say that to me. They're like, oh, I've got this injury, I've got to have 4 weeks off, but that's nothing for you. I'm like, well, it's still something. It's still taking the joy away from you for 4 weeks. So I think you don't need to say that, but yeah. So I don't know. I did. I learned a lot during that period, and I learned a lot about my body and what it can handle. And there was the navicular stress fracture and getting that screw that pinned, and then I got a fourth met stress fracture about 3 months after that. And then I had my navicular had to be repinned because one of the pins was coming out. So there was like at points it was one step forward, 2 steps back. It wasn't fun. But I luckily had sort of my uni dissertation to be able to focus on, and I had other things to focus on. And I don't know, I've just always been very focused, and I know exactly what I want. Nothing's gonna get in my way. And even that, which was awful to deal with, I knew that I don't care. I want to be a triathlete. I want to go to the Olympics, and I want to win a medal, and I will do that. I will get through this period. And even if, the medical team weren't really sure what was going to happen, because the navicular can sometimes not heal great. So they weren't sure what was going to happen. So there was all these conversations going on, and just making me aware that, look, obviously we're going to try and get you back to racing, but just be prepared that it might not happen. But I didn't really think about that. I was like, it's definitely going to happen. I'm going to be back to triathlon. Don't worry about that. So yeah, no, it was a dark period, but I learned a lot from it. And yeah, I think I can understand my body much more now. I know the signs of when it's starting to break down. I know what I need to do to stay healthy. Like I said before, I'm still going to get injuries. Things are still going to go wrong, but I definitely learned a lot from that period.
And how powerful it is to have that mental focus that gives you that clarity that you just sit there almost in a meditative state, like, nope, well, I know where I'm going. So when my body's ready, it will come with me. And I always find it fascinating, as I'm sure you do, how the mind is linked to the body, and that recuperation, a lot of it happens and is benefited by just having a positive outlook and a sort of a constant goal that's clearly visible and you're working towards. And that is a thing that probably benefits the recovery in a strange way.
Yeah. And I think so many people say, did you ever think about quitting during that period? And I actually don't think I did think about quitting once, because I did just love sport and I wanted to do sport. That's what I saw myself doing. I was probably scared to enter the real world. So I wanted to really, really give it a go. But I just love sport. And even when I couldn't race, I enjoyed watching the other girls race and enjoyed seeing them do well. And that really fueled the fire for me, because I wanted to get out there and I wanted to be involved in that. And it's like, I guess it's around the Olympics, the first medal for the country is won. And then every athlete there wants a medal then, because you want to be involved with that. So I just wanted to be there. I wanted to be involved with it. I didn't want to miss out on anything. So I just followed the plan as best as I could and tried to stick to it. But I never thought about quitting at all. I wanted to just be an Olympian so bad and be able to get an Olympic medal so much that I was never going to lose sight of that. And I didn't want to regret just giving up and quitting. I wanted to at least give it a go.
Yeah, it's a goal a long time in the making. There was a post you'd put up where you'd written like to your 10-year-old self, because I think you discovered something when you were very young, something that actually referenced that you had goals of being an Olympian, and you wrote, "You did it, we did it. One childhood dream ticked off, in brackets, getting into the Olympics. The second dream of my 10-year-old self was quite ambitious, though, to win an Olympic medal." And you have like a facepalm emoji, aim high and all that, which I thought was interesting because like, obviously in retrospect it's like it did happen. Let's rocket out of that dark period, come forward to the golden era, all the recent events. On the flight over to Tokyo, to the Olympics, when you have a goal and a dream, some people talk about the fact that it's not quite so insane when it does happen, because you're like, well, I've kind of thought this is going to happen the whole time because it's kind of what I've been aiming for, so it's just in line with what I've been, wanting and trying to think into reality, if you like, and work towards all this time. So on the flight over, for example, are you just in focus mode? Are you excited? Or is there a little bit of like, this isn't really happening, I'm flying over to the Olympics, this is weird? Like, what did it feel like going over there?
I was excited going over. I was really nervous because, like I said, I got injured 11 weeks before the games. So I had 6 weeks off running, and that first 6 weeks was very intermittent with training. I was sort of building back into things again, doing a lot of rehab stuff. So I basically had 5 weeks to get as fit as I possibly could in those 5 weeks, and do as much as I could without pushing it too much. So I was feeling a lot of different things on that flight over. I was excited. I was really nervous. I was a bit paranoid that I might get injured again, or it's not healed fully and it's going to crop back up, because we were pushing my training at that point because we needed to crack on, so we didn't have much time left. So we were pushing it. So I was feeling a lot of different things, but I was very nervous, mostly just about the race, because I was going into the unknown. The Olympics was my first race of the season. I hadn't raced since September 2020.
That's mad, isn't it?
Yes, I wasn't sure where I was at all. Training was going really well, so I knew that I was going well in training, but sometimes that doesn't mean anything when you race. I really wasn't sure at all. So I don't know whether that was a good thing or a bad thing, because I was going into the unknown. So then surely I shouldn't expect much of myself because I've just come off the back of an injury. But then I'm going to the Olympics, so I should expect a lot of myself. I've got there to this point, and I wanted a medal. I really, really wanted a medal. So I think it all sort of sunk in that I was at the Olympic Games when sort of the racing started at the Olympics, and you'd see athletes from Great Britain competing, and I'm sat in my hotel room in Tokyo and I'm watching the Olympics, which I've done every 4 years with the family, but now I'm actually watching it and I'm also there. So it kind of all sunk in then, and I got quite nervous because I was like, oh God, I'm watching the games and I'm competing in a few days. This is really weird for me now. Growing up watching the games, and now I'm here, I'm doing it. This is really real. So yeah, I think it all kind of sunk in then when I was sat in the hotel room watching the first few competitions of the games. But there was a lot of nerves in that week leading up to the race. We had a really good holding camp for 10 days before we flew out to Tokyo. And that was actually really nice. It was very relaxed. I was getting on with my training. I was feeling pretty good. But then once we got to Tokyo, things got very, very real. And I got very nervous. And there wasn't very much sleep in the lead up to the games at all.
Yeah, and even things like talking about moving dates and stuff. I think your parents went on to Good Morning Britain, which was quite cool, and spoke a little bit. I think it was the day after, and they talked about the Puncture, which we'll discuss in a moment, and the nerves. And your mum, Bev, referenced the fact that there'd been discussion over them even pushing the triathlon back, and she said her nerves couldn't hold the fact if it was, because she was already so nervous about the race and watching you, and if they put it back a few more days, she was like, I literally won't be able to wait that long. Like, that's just ridiculous. So I imagine there is a real sense of tension leading up to that, and there's so many things we could talk about with the two races and the silver and the gold and everything. So I just want to ask you a couple of main things about it. The first one really is kind of about the comparison between the individual and the team, and just from a a perspective, spectator point of view, and having watched it, the team one, triathlon is an exciting sport as it was, but the team triathlon, the mixed relay, was just, it brings a whole new element to the sport, in my opinion. I thought this whole touching of hands, 2 men, 2 women, like, it's just so exciting. That for me was one of the highlights of the Olympics, irrespective of winning the gold, just watching it full stop, and just the charge down and diving into the water, watching Alex Yee go and just aggressively dive into that water was just, I watched it back a little earlier just to refresh my memory of it, and even though I know the result, I was still really gripped by the whole thing. For you, is there more pressure doing one than the other? Do you feel like in the team, for example, do you feel like there's a responsibility there to the team that you have to perform, whereas the individual, it's on your own shoulders? What's it like, right? Do you have one that you prefer doing, individual versus mixed relay?
I really love the mixed team relay because I just get so excited for it. I think I am a people person. I love being around people. I love being around the team and chatting. So for me, the relay is, I'm just in my element because that's my thing. I just get so excited for it. And I get to watch my team race once I finish racing or once I'm about to race, and just gets me even more excited. So yeah, before the race, again, we're sort of warming up. We had a bit of Whitney Houston playing in the warm-up room, and I was dancing around and I was just getting so excited for it. Was everyone else was a bit more nervous, but I just really enjoy it because I just kept saying to Jess, she was getting quite nervous, and I was like, it's just 20 minutes. You can do anything for 20 minutes. She was like, you can't hold your breath for 20 minutes. I was like, Jess, stop being negative. You can do anything for 20 minutes.
She probably could. She's such a good swimmer anyway, but yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. So I just think it's only 20 minutes. What's the worst that can happen? I can't die that hard. If you're at the front of the race, the thrill of being caught, or the thrill of being behind, and then the chase is on, and I just enjoy everything about it. But we've got a pretty strong team, and we were in for a good shot of a medal. So I think we were all quite pumped and hyped. And yeah, I got so excited for the mixed team relay. And then I guess in the lineup, when Johnny was on the run and I was waiting for him to come in and tag my hand, that's when the nerves started to sink in, because I thought, oh God, we're at the front of the race now. This is so much pressure because I can't lose this lead for them. So yeah, the pressure was definitely on there, but I just had to go hard, and that's all you can really do in that kind of race. The relay, you don't look back, you don't wait for anyone on the bike, you don't ask anyone to pull any turns, you just go hard.
Yeah.
And you see what happens. So yeah, we did pretty good, and to see Alex come in on that run at the end was just incredible. I mean, we knew that if Alex could be there on the coming off the bike, then we kind of had it.
He's a phenomenal runner. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, like he just floats across the ground. So we just sort of shouted at him going on to the second lap of the run, just enjoy it, Alex, just take it in, because we've got it now. So just enjoy this last lap and just take every second in.
Yeah, that was such a great showcase of running during that mixed relay, because you, Johnny, and Alex are all so strong that as a spectator, there's almost a comfort when you guys get off that bike. You kind of relax a bit. Okay, it's Alex Yee on a run, like he'll be okay. Johnny, obviously, like the Brownlees are just born to run. They're born to do all three, but when they run, it looks so natural, and yet they run so aggressively, and you think, but they just maintain that pace. It's absolutely incredible. It's an incredible spectacle. Got to talk about the Puncture, the silver medal Puncture. Just talk me through that moment. For anyone listening, if they don't know, you're on the bike and you get a puncture, and you stayed to us pretty poker face. Like there was no, there wasn't, I don't know what you'd expect. Like the hands go, this is terrible. But like you looked calm, you looked like you were prepared for any eventuality. So just talk me through the moment that happened when you first became aware of it, and what are the immediate emotions and the reaction to that?
So I don't fully know how it happened. I kind of have an idea of where it might have happened. We went around a corner, and I think I hit like a small metal grate, and I think I maybe just went in at a bad angle and it knocked the air out of my tire. I'm not entirely sure, but then I just basically heard and I instantly thought, oh no, why is my brake rubbing now? This is not good timing. I just thought my disc brakes were rubbing, because it kind of sounded like that. And I didn't even consider having a puncture because I've never punctured in a race before.
Wow.
I've been doing triathlon I've done 9 years of racing for triathlon. So I've never had a puncture in a race. So I just didn't even think about it. And then, I came off one of the corners out of the park and I looked down to kind of look at my disc brakes to see what was going on. And then I noticed that I felt that I had a flat tire. You know, when you've got a flat tire. I panicked slightly, but for a short second. And then I kind of laughed because I was like, yeah, this seems about right with my luck this year. This has obviously happened to me. And then straight after that, I was like, okay, what are we going to do now? So I just instantly went into figuring things out, and different plans were running around in my head. And I was near a wheel station. I thought, do I stop? But if I stop, then I'm going to lose a lot of time. I'm probably going to end up in the second bike pack at that point. So I missed the wheel station and I dropped the wheels of the other girls going around one of the first dead turns. And then I managed to get back on the long straight. And then I dropped the wheel on the second dead turn. And from that point, I was just on my own there because I couldn't get back on those too many little corners. And it was wet and I had a flat tire. So I had to take it really careful because I was thinking at this point, I just need to stay upright. I just want to get to transition in one piece. So as soon as I got on the straights where I could ride, I rode pretty hard and pretty solid. So the final turn back into sort of the blue carpet area, that was the trickiest one to navigate because it was quite sharp. It was a steep little ramp. It wasn't very grippy at all. So I just tried not to panic. And then coming in off the bike, I was just constantly trying to think. I was like, okay, dismounting with a puncture, that's going to be quite difficult, but I'm just going to have to be careful. I'll take it really slow and then think, okay, you put your bike in, George, you get your trainers on, you take your helmet off, and then you go for it. And I didn't plan on going out of transition as hard as I did, but I think I actually felt quite good. And whether that was just because I was full of adrenaline and probably anger as well, I just went quite hard. And to be honest, it paid off because I didn't want to go hard, but I knew that, okay, I'm only 20 seconds behind. I can get back in the race. I can get back in this race. And I think it was best to just get back in on the first lap and then just hang on for dear life after that, which is pretty much what I did. So it was a little bit stressful, but I tried to keep my cool, and I just thought, well, there's nothing I can do at this point. So I'm just going to have to do what I can do and control what I can control right now. Once I get to that finish line and I've just completely emptied myself, and what will be, I guess.
There's a scene in the film Pearl Harbor where there's like a dogfight happening overhead, and this character is like excellent in a plane, and he just needs to he says something about just get me in a plane or something. It's like this famous line, and it kind of reminded me of when you had that puncture, because of being aware of your ability to run. I had that kind of same line going through my head. Just get her through that transition. Just get her running. Get her into those running shoes and just moving, because that's when you can kind of start to get it back a little bit. You can't help but think about all those different scenarios, like how the puncture could have happened so much earlier and how that would have changed things, or if it hadn't happened at all, where would you be, and would you have been on the back of floor and all these things. But it's probably all kind of pointless. Everything just happens and you deal with it at the time, and there's no point reminiscing on that too hard. It's certainly not in a negative way. But what it did do, apart from its drive and exciting narrative, is result in this incredibly exciting chase to watch. It just made the triathlon all the more exciting, because then it's like, well, we know she's a great runner, and these people in front of her, let's see how they're performing in terms of the run. And you're just picking people off. And the BBC commentary was excellent. I've watched the Olympic version they released, which is a little bit different, but the BBC one has a bit more of a focus. The name Taylor Brown comes out a bit more, because they are focusing on where you're at and you're picking someone off. There's this incredible moment when the puncture happens and the lady's saying, I think she's had a puncture or something. And then this guy says the line, I wrote it down, it's heartbreak for Georgia Taylor Brown. The word heartbreak comes out, which makes you just go, oh my God, what's going to happen? So it sort of sets this kind of ever so slightly like downward tone of, oh no. But then as you start to gain it back, and oh my God, she's moving into medal position. So just from a narrative perspective, and I apologize for asking you about it, because I don't know if for years to come, people are going to be asking about the time you got a puncture and still got a silver medal in the Olympics. That might be a narrative that comes up, but for people, it was very exciting. So did you find that that only added to the whole thing? And have things changed a little bit post-Olympics? Have you noticed much more attention on you, or have things kind of calmed down now?
To be fair, after the games, it's been okay. Like, there's been nice events that I've been able to get involved with, and a few requests here and there, but it's not been too chaotic. It's just been nice to be able to see family and friends and enjoy it with them, because my parents wanted to be out there with me and obviously they couldn't. It's been nice to enjoy it with family and friends and do things with different people. Like, got to go to the homecoming concert, which was really fun in London. And then I've been to like the theatre, been to a nice hotel, and all these little opportunities pop up, which is really nice. So yeah, I'm just kind of taking it all in at the minute and enjoying every opportunity that comes my way. But I guess as an athlete, it's strange because you work hard for so long and all your efforts are on the Olympic Games, and that you focus on so much and you put so much energy into it. And you think, well, once I've done the Olympics, like, I'm going to be so happy. Life's going to be made. It's going to be amazing. You go to the Olympics, you compete and you do well or you don't do well. And even if, like, doing well for me, I've come home with 2 medals. That's incredible. That's only a dream that's come true. And it doesn't change anything. And you do kind of have a bit of a come down, and you're like, oh, well, everything's exactly the same. And I'm still going to morning training and I don't feel any different. So yeah, the first few weeks were pretty tough, to be honest, because you do come down a bit because you've worked hard for so long and you've been so excited for this one event, and then it's over and you don't really know what to do with yourself. And I had no motivation to train because I was like, well, I've worked that hard for so long. I don't feel like I've got anything to focus on anymore. I just want a bit of time away from the sport. But yeah, I think I've handled it quite well, and I've managed to have a bit of downtime and just time to do things that I wanted to do. And then I just wanted to get back into training when the motivation came back and when I actually wanted to do things. And it started to come back now, and I have got a few races left. I've got a whole month of racing in September, and then I've got a race in October and November. So quite a long season for me. So yeah, I think it is hard for any athlete coming off the games, but not even the games, just any race. I mean, I get back from a World Series race and I am a bit down for a few days because you're like, oh, well, it's done now. Like, I might have won or I might have come last, but you still feel a bit down about the whole thing because you've been excited for the lead up into it and then it's over. So yeah, no, nothing's changed really. I'm still getting straight back into training and just doing things that I enjoy doing and make me happy. And I guess just trying to tick over and make sure I'm still fit enough and fast enough to be able to do the next 4 races.
Yeah, it's like one of the trade-offs for getting to be on a world stage. Do something that's so exciting in the moment and gives you all this joy and euphoria. And it's like, the come down off the drug. There is an element of, there's a stillness afterwards when you think, okay. I always remember, like, I did a stack of theatre. Well, I have kind of all my life, but particularly when I was a bit younger. And I always remember on the last night when the curtains would close and just that thing of like, you sort of come out of whatever performance I was in. Sometimes it was like, something ridiculous, Prince Charming and Cinderella, and you're taking the costume off. And there was always this incredible high that you barely ever get. I mean, maybe if I run a personal bests in a race, that's about the only other time it might happen. But then as you're taking off that final costume and you're leaving and it's just this sudden stop because there's been, like you say, you're building up, you are rehearsing lines and going over everything for months and months and months for just these like 3 nights of this performance. People have paid to come see you and this group perform these lines, and it's a very surreal thing that you do. I remember sitting at home even when like as a teenager, like on a sofa, just being like, okay, nothing's going to be as good as that. What do I do now? And I think with sport, you're right. There's a weird element in that it comes with other things as well. There's expectations, in the narrative of commentary, the term of what you've achieved in the past gets kind of attached to your name. So it's Georgia Taylor Brown, Olympic medalist, like it will keep going. And sometimes that's a bit like, I can't really sort of duck down anymore and just have a bad race and it's all right because I was just in the mix. Now there's this spotlight slightly over you. So it's absolutely something I was going to ask you about, but you've already talked a little bit about it, is whether there was an immediate kind of, oh, this is weird, like what now? But clearly, obviously, for the first couple of weeks, it was a slightly strange experience.
Yeah, and people always ask like, oh, is it sunk in that you're Olympic champion and you got a silver medal? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know that it'll ever sink in. I mean, I don't know what that actually means. Like I'm proud of what I achieved, and I'm so happy and relieved almost to have achieved that. But I still want more. I still think I can do better, and I still want better. It's weird. Like I'm sat at home and like I might see my medals on the side and I look at them and I'm like, I did that. Like that's pretty cool, but I want more, and it hasn't changed me as a person. I don't feel any different. I still love triathlon. I still want to do triathlon. It's just something that I achieved, which is pretty cool, and obviously I'm proud of, and everyone around me is proud of. But it hasn't changed me at all. And I still, I've like I said, I've got the motivation back now to train. And to be honest, it's come back quicker than I expected. Usually in a normal year, we'd race the Olympics and then we'd probably do world champs, and then that's it, season over. So you get time to absorb it all and just take it all in. Whereas we've got more races to do, which I actually think is kind of nice because it keeps me distracted and it gives me another little aim. And like I said earlier, the Olympics was my first race of the season. So technically this year I've only done 2 races. So I am kind of just starting my season. So I am ready to get back out there. And I race in the Super League triathlon this weekend coming. And I think I'm just ready for another little challenge and to see how my body's recovered and what it can do again.
Yeah. And it's been a bit of time. It's a month to the day since the gold. On the subject of wanting more, it's kind of that strange dichotomy that someone who is a high achiever goes through as a good sportsman. So the very fact that you got there and got to that point that allowed you to get the medal because you are driven like that. There's no person that wins a gold and then just went, do you know what? Now I'm going to go into accountancy, because you're always going to, you got there because you have the passion for it and because you have that love for it. So it's absolutely understandable that you want to go for something next. Is there a part of you that thinks about the fact that it was a silver, so there is one more step to go in the individual, even though the mixed relay was a gold, that you as an individual, George Taylor Brown, there is one more step? Is that something that ever comes into the narrative? You think, yep, 3 years time, I can see that being a gold? Yeah,
definitely. I want to be the individual Olympic champion, because who doesn't? But I want better of myself. I want to be a better athlete. I want to improve every single day. So I definitely am aiming for that. In Paris, hopefully I can try and qualify. So our qualification process starts next year, which seems just crazy because we've only just finished this Olympics. So it seems mad to start collecting points again, but it's going around super fast. So I'll try and aim for Paris. I would like an Olympic gold medal just to myself as well, because that would be quite nice.
Yeah, absolutely. And then it's just you that did that and the responsibility. But maybe even the gold in the mixed relay again, if Johnny's still up for it, because what a triathlete he is. It's a funny thing with triathlon, because we get into this weird culture of thinking that all of a sudden someone turns 31, 32 and it's like, ooh, they're getting on. And it's like, come on. But the absolute peak of sport, you get into these weird numbers where you start thinking of yourself as much older. I'm 2 years older than you. I'm 29 at the moment. Yourself currently 27. And I think sometimes I catch myself thinking, why am I thinking of myself as old? I'm only 29. Like, this is like, if you said that to an 85-year-old, if they could, they'd probably punch you. They might have, they might be able to, but they would, because they'd be like, come on. Like, I think quite often we can be guilty of thinking that we're older than we are. In the grand scheme of things, we're very, very young, but paying so much attention to our bodies and being at a physical peak, which is essentially what we take an interest in, leads to a slight kind of miscalculation on where we're at in life, that we're all of a sudden really far along when we're not. We're just beginning at the grand scheme of things, which kind of leads me to ask you finally, Georgia, about like future plans. Obviously, you must be aware of the sort of the amount of years you have. You're very self-aware as a person. I think that's quite a healthy thing, as long as you continue to look at it positively. Are there any kind of major, well, obviously we just talked about one of them, but things you'd like to do with the sport and future goals that where you see yourself doing in the next few years to kind of make the most of this career and look back and go, I gave that a real stab, and I think I'm just looking back and being satisfied with your career?
Yeah, I think I want to be able to just know that I've given it absolutely everything, because I'm not going to be able to do sport at this level forever. Like, my body can't physically do that, but I'm going to see how long my body will allow me to do that. And once my body decides it's time, and obviously you'll just start to get more and more injuries and niggles, then that's time. And I'm not going to try and push through that, because I think I've had, even up until this point, I've had a pretty good career. So I think I'll just see what my body can handle. And I'd like to continue in Olympic distance races and go for Paris and maybe go for LA. I mean, at that point I'll be 34. So that is getting on for a triathlete, but it's not unheard of. And I definitely could do that. But like I said, I'll just see where I can go and where my body takes me and what it can handle. Then from there, I'd maybe like to try a half distance, like a 70.3 Ironman, or I'd do a full Ironman, and at least say that I've tried it. And if I love it, then maybe I'll continue. And if I don't love it, which I'm not sure I will, because it's a long time just with yourself and just your own thoughts. And I don't think I'm that focused to be able to do that. I need to be in a proper race with people around me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I'd like to try it, but and see where that goes. But I think I'd just kind of like to leave a bit of a,
not a legacy, but I just want to be able to inspire people and inspire young kids, and especially girls, because the dropout rate is just ridiculous for girls in sport. And I would just like to, I guess, inspire them for them to believe in themselves and just push through and just enjoy it. I think that's the biggest thing, which is what has got me to how I've got where I am, to be honest, is just enjoying it and just the love for the sport, and getting a nice team around you and a group of people that really care about you, and just working hard. Like I said earlier, I just want to leave the sport knowing that I have completely given it my all, and I have absolutely no regrets whatsoever.
Yeah.
And I gave everything to every single race.
That's good words to hear. And 27 is a great age, because you are now experienced enough to have some real perspective and understanding, kind of like we talked about, tweaking what kind of works for you on a day-to-day basis, and understanding yourself, your own body, your own mind, and the best way to train. And yet you can still say, I have got plenty of years ahead of me to do these things in. So it's a really nice middle point to be in. You're not at the latter stages, you're not early on. There's not a naivety there. It's a great place to be. Your goals are good. We started a local running club called JOG ON Juniors, which was aimed with exactly that goal, is to try and counteract that dropout rate. So it's kind of aimed at sort of 10 to 14-year-olds. So right in that critical point when social things start to kind of become a bit dominant, and peer pressure, and people think that certain things aren't cool anymore, and for whatever reason they drop out. And the amount of people that tell me the stories, even on this podcast, about how they were kind of enjoying running up until like maybe 14, 15, and triathlon and other sports, and then they just kind of stopped it, and then they kind of went to uni, and they did, they drank a bit, and then they got into a job, and now they're like 48 and they're just picking it back up again, and they always want to go back and like shake the 14-year-old version of themselves, and they just stick this out a little bit longer. Like, honestly, there's good things that can come of this. So I think to have a goal of encouraging people and inspiring people, which I think you already have done with what you've done so far up to 27, but hopefully you can do even more of, is a great goal, and try and counteract some of that dropout rates. That's a really nice thing. When I was looking on triathlon.org, in your bio, it has this, what I feel is a slightly unfair statement, which it says, burst onto the elite triathlon circuit in 2017. And I think our culture is very guilty of like, oh, she's just kind of all of a sudden she picked up triathlon. I'm great at it. Let's do this. And there's like, you didn't just burst on, like there's years of build up. You have to go back and see all these the hours of training, jumping in and out of lakes, swimming in pools, getting on off bikes, practicing transitions, doing hills, running 4 times a week, all this stuff, all the cross country, and all that has contributed to this achievement. So I think it's, I'm going to speak on your behalf because I'm sure you'll be too polite and nice about it. But like, I think that burst onto the scene is a little bit unjust. It's like, a lot of hard work has gone into that point to get to the 2017 stage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And I don't know, maybe in a way I did burst, but also not, because I missed that period of coming off of my junior career and then trying to get into senior career. I missed those 2 years of racing because of my injury. So I guess I sort of disappeared, but yeah, I was still very prevalent in the junior side of things. I had a really good junior career. So yeah, maybe I didn't quite burst onto the scene. I didn't come out of nowhere. there was a lot of hard work, and I didn't just magically get better overnight.
Are there any more goals with your running? It's quite obvious to me that if someone, for whatever reason, swimming didn't become an option anymore tomorrow, cycling wasn't an option, that you probably would be quite happy to run. You clearly get a lot from it. Could you see yourself, if someone said to you from tomorrow, right, Georgia, you can't do triathlon anymore, could you be happy as someone who goes and still does cross country and do that? Or is it now like you feel like triathlon is a part of you that you could never be without the cycling and the swimming as well?
No, I could be without it. I love running, and like I love the cross country running, but I'm not going to make a career out of cross country running, unfortunately. But I don't think running's for me. I've like toyed with the idea of maybe one day I'd try and be a pro cyclist. I love riding my bike, and I feel like I could probably be quite a good domestique and be a team player there. I'd never be good enough to be a leader, but I think I'd really like to work in a team and help the team get success. Swimming, I could definitely do without. I'm not bothered by swimming at all. And I think when I retire, I'm definitely fully retiring from swimming. I'm not going to be bothered about going to the pool and going for a swim.
Did there ever come a point where, obviously people like Johnny and Alistair being a few years older than you, that was there a point when you looked up at people who were in those age categories above and thought, blimey, like you saw them doing their stuff in 2012 and got a little inspired? And is there then when you take from that moment and you fast forward a few years and you're standing next to them about to tag Johnny as he's coming in during the Olympics, are there moments like that where you think, blimey, these were people that I was once seeing in age categories above me and now I'm actually racing with them? Does that make it all a bit real? Is that a surreal experience?
It was still obviously amazing to have Johnny in the team and knowing what he's achieved and how long he's been in the sport for, and just looking through like stats before the race of how many, I think he's podiumed in more than half of the World Series races that he's actually done. And then he's podiumed at every single Olympics he's done. Yep. So that's just an incredible achievement. So to be in a team with someone like that is quite special and an honor, really. And to help him get the gold medal that he's finally been waiting for so long and working so hard for. So yeah, I think it's something that you think about. You're like, wow, I'm around these incredible athletes, but then I think you have to show yourself some respect and you know, you've earned your position to be there as well, and you've worked just as hard as them. But no, it feels a bit more natural now to be racing alongside them.
100%. Yeah, it's a nice balance. And again, that comes down to being, you know, later half of your 20s and having that experience now. And I think for a long time, it is that thing of like, you're slightly in awe and a little bit sort of shell-shocked by the whole thing. And then what develops is that ability to, the cerebral cortex finally develops at 25, and you end up being in this thing where you kind of go, no, I know who I am. I'm also here. And it's amazing that Jonathan Brownlee is right there, but also like, I know who I am and I know why I'm here. And I think without, it's you say, it's that fine balance. Our culture is a little bit dismissive of any kind of confidence, all of a sudden immediately being arrogant, and it's absolutely not. You just have that self-confidence, and that's how you got here, and you know who you are and you know where you're going, and that's a very admirable quality. Yeah, Johnny's consistency, you just mentioned, that is unbelievable when you look at it. I think how long he's been around and just constantly performing so well is amazing. Georgia, it's been absolutely wonderful to talk to you. Thank you so much for coming on and speaking to me. It's been really fascinating to hear about your journey, and I think one of the big takeaways is the consistency and that dedication, and I think that mental focus that leads the body through injury, through the setbacks, to get to the point of where you want to be, demonstrated once again in an obvious way when you got the puncture and there wasn't that kind of panic. You kept quite calm and you knew how to deal with it, and again, it's just like shooting for that finish line. So it's been really brilliant to talk to you. What I will do is I will leave you with I found a YouTube comment that someone had put. It's just a very short couple of lines I thought summed it up quite well, that was regarding your performance to get the silver. And this one person, who had an anonymous computer name, had just written, "That beats a gold. That's dedication, commitment, composure and resilience. Bloody brilliant." Georgia, thank you so much for coming on. It's been wonderful to talk to you, and thank you.
No, thank you very much for having me. It's been lovely to chat to you.
JOG ON produces podcast episodes and videos about the running and adventure world. To find out more or to purchase a JOG ON running top, check us out at thisisjogon.com. I'm Harry Morgan. Go for that gold. And this is JOG ON.